Okay, so when you're finding midpoint or slope and you're using the ordered pairs such as 2, -5, and 6, 1, I need you to first understand that these are always x comma y. Eventually it's going to be x, y, z when you get to like algebra 2 or beyond. It'll be a three-dimensional graph. So this is the first x we see, and that's the first y we see. And then for this one, it's x2 comma y2. So when you were calculating midpoint and distance on your test, you were thinking of this as both of these being x's, and you were subtracting them. You can't do that. Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that. So I'll just do one midpoint problem, one distance. If you're doing midpoint, you know that the formula is x1 plus x2 all over 2, comma y1 plus y2 all over 2, so you're finding the average of these. This is a formula that you'd have to have memorized, so I'm going to keep a list for you of what you'll want to memorize right before the placement test. And you're really just finding the averages of the x's. You're adding them and dividing by how many there are. So when I add x1 and x2, I'm actually adding 2 plus 6 in this case, and then dividing by 2. And then for the y's, I'm doing -5 plus 1, and then dividing by 2. So my answer for this would be 8 divided by 2, which is 4, and -4 divided by 2, which is -2. Okay, and then for distance formula, we would have d equals the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. And so d will equal, if we take our x2, which is 6, and subtract 2, so 6 minus 2 would be 4 squared, so 4, okay, plus, and then for our y's, we'd have 1 minus -5, which is really 1 plus 5, 6 squared. And so then we'd get the square root of, well, 4 squared is 16, plus 6 squared is 36. So square root of 36 plus 16, which is 6, 12, 52, which is about 7 point, I don't have a calculator in front of me, but just for a general idea, it's going to be about 7 point something, so maybe 7.1 or so, because radical 49 is 7. But you could also simplify this as well. Let's see, so 52 would be, if you do a factor tree, it would be 4 and 13, and 4 is 2 and 2, and so you can take the square root of 4, which is 2, so the 2 goes outside, the pair goes outside as one number, and what's left over, the 13, would go inside. So it's about 7.1, just you have to put that in the calculator to make sure, or it's definitely 2 radical 13. And then the only other concept that you got incorrect was if the midpoint, if you were given the midpoint. So I'm going to show you how to do that on another slide. And other than that, you did great with Chapter 1, so nice job. Okay, say you were given an endpoint 1, 2, and a midpoint of 5, 6, and it asks you to find the other point. So what you do is normally you'd be finding the average. Like this other point, we don't know what it is right now. We don't know the other endpoint, so I'm just going to call it x and y. So normally you find the average, you say like x1 plus x2, so like 1 plus the other x, we can call this x2 and y2 if we want to. So 1 plus x2 or whatever, divided by 2, right, would get us our midpoint number of 5, the x value. And if you do the y's, you would do 2 plus some y value, y or y2, whatever you want to call it, divided by 2 will get us our y value of 6. And so we're just going to calculate these problems algebraically. So let me change this here. So if I do this over here, to get rid of the divided by 2, I could multiply by 2 on both sides. And so I'd end up with 1 plus x, because that was just to cancel out the 2 on the left, is equal to 10. And then I would know that my x is going to be 9, that's supposed to be 9, 10 minus 1, I subtracted 1 from both sides, to get 9. So my x is 9, and my y value, same thing. I'll multiply by 2 to get rid of that fraction to both sides. I end up with 2 plus y equals 12. Subtract 2 from both sides, and I get y equals 10. So 9, 10. And I can check that this makes sense. If I add my x values, let me get my pointer out. If I add my x values of 1 and 9, I would get 10. Divide that by 2, I get 5. And do the y values. 2 plus 10 is 12. Divide by 2 is 6. So if you can use this information now to do the worksheets I gave you and check your answers, let me know if you need any help with this. You may not have learned midpoint and distance yet. It might not have been in your curriculum for Chapter 1, so don't stress over it. But it was literally one tiny error that you had using the formula. It was just with the x, comma, y is what you want to remember, as opposed to you doing x1, comma, x2 in one ordered pair. Any questions, please stop by and ask me anytime.